Avraham.
Shalom Uvracha, everybody. Around 38 years ago, I visited the Baba Meir. Does anybody know who that is, Baba Meir? That was the son of the Baba Sali. He was a Kadosh Elyon, a big tzaddik. And the Baba Sali used to say that he's greater than me. He was a big Kadosh Elyon. I went to see him. He lived on the 4th floor in Ashdod. And I went up to see him. And when I came in, I saw like a Malach Elokim. So yes, the Rebbe, it says in the Holy Sefer of Noam Elimelech that in every generation there's a certain mitzvah which we do not keep properly. What is the mitzvah in our generation that we don't keep properly? So he told me that the mitzvah of kas, controlling ourselves. He says, this is what he told us. He told me. Everybody says, I'm nervous. I can't concentrate. I'm nervous. I'm this, I'm that. He says, that is the mitzvah of our generation, to control ourselves. So I asked him, Rebbe, but it says in the Noam Elimelech that there is a mitzvah in every generation which we're weak in. Kas is not a mitzvah. Kas is an aveira. So you know what he answered me? There is no bigger mitzvah in the world than a person holding himself back from being in kas, angry. I'll say it over again. Rebbe, it says there's a mitzvah in every generation that we don't keep properly. Kas, anger, is an aveira. So we answered, there is no bigger mitzvah in the Torah, the Yidden. We're talking about Kadosh Elyon, Baba Meir. I don't know if you know who he was. Every word is holy. There is no bigger mitzvah in the world than for a person to controlling himself from being in kas. And kas means losing yourself. I have to do what I want. What bothers me. I can't keep quiet. That's the root of everything. If you know how to control yourself, so when it comes to mitzvahs, you know how to control yourself. When it comes to averis chassid shalom, you know how to control yourself. That's one thing I want to tell you from the Baba Meir. Okay? So we learned one thing very important tonight. The biggest mitzvah in the world is to control yourself. Learn how to control yourself. Don't get mad at him. If you have Emunah, it's not this person that hurt me. It's not this person that's causing me damage. It's not my boss. It's not my wife. It's not my friends. It's not my neighbors. It's the Rabbeinu Shalom. What are you getting mad for? What are you getting mad for? That's what it says. Toylo eretz al blimo. The world rests on people. A person keeps quiet. A person is mevayesh you. A person forshames you. And you keep quiet, the world stands on you. Why? Because the world was created for Emunah. We should have Emunah in Hashem. That's what the whole purpose of Torah is, to teach us Emunah. We have to learn how to control ourselves. Not when we come to the shul. Right, the rabbi spoke and we go home and do whatever we want. Learn to control yourself. That's one thing I want to tell you about the Baba Meir. There's another thing I want to tell you from the Baba Meir. The Baba Meir was the Rav, I think in Merkaz, in Morocco. And there was a very simple Jew in Morocco. He was a Shomer Torah Mitzvot, right? He was a Tamim, a person that kept the mitzvahs immaculately, but he was a very ignorant person. His parents never had money to send him to school to learn how to read and write. You could daven, but he didn't. Their parents didn't have. He didn't have that schut. Today we think it's normal. We go to school. We have teachers. It's not normal. There was a time that wasn't normal. If your parents had money, you went to learn. If you didn't have money, you didn't. So this Jew was a tamim, a big tamim. He kept the mitzvahs with his whole heart. and he was a Talmud of the Baba Meir. In other words, he was part of his congregation. Every day we say, right? Rabbi Shalom, do we know? Do you know? We think, what do you realize what we're saying? Rabbi Shalom, please, I want to see you. I want to see the Shekhinah. I want to see the Beis Hamikdash. I want to see Beis David HaMelech. Every day we say this. Do you really mean it? Of course we mean it. The neshama means it, but you have to make sure that your mind also means it. So this simple Jew, one day decided, I want to go to live in Eretz Yisrael. And he told his friends, and his friends made fun of him. You're going to go to Israel? Israel is a modern land. You don't know how to write. You don't know how to read and write. You don't know basics of arithmetic. You know nothing. How are you going to get a job if you go to Eretz Israel? It's a modern country. You have to be educated. So, but he realized that you don't listen to people. You listen to your Rebbe. You understand? That's our problem. We listen to Shmerel, to Beryl, to Boris, to him, but we don't listen to the Rav. The Rabbanim that are here, they're giving their lives away for us, trying to give us Torah in our minds and in our hearts. We have to listen to them. So this Jew had a Munat Chachamim. He was close to the Baba Meir, and he went to the Baba Meir and he said, Rebbe, I want to go to Eretz Yisrael. So Rebbe says, what's the problem? He says, you know what the problem is? My friends are making fun of me. I can't read or write. I'm illiterate. How am I going to get a job in Israel? So listen what the tzaddik says. What? Parnasah is in the hands of Hashem.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Amen. Parnasah is in the hands of Hashem. You go to Eretz Yisrael. And it could very well be that the reason that you can't read or write, that will bring you your Parnasah. If you have Emunah, so this person had Emunah. Now he didn't go back to his friends and hear the Litzanot that they say, but the Rabbi, you understand, they're old-fashioned, blah, 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 blah. He had Emunah Tzadikim, and he went to Eretz Yisrael. Okay. He comes to Eretz Yisrael. He has to get a job. He has to make Parnasah. He's a young man. Comes to Eretz Yisrael, and they tell him, you know, his family had a friend. They opened up the newspaper, and they look at the classifies the jobs. Where do we get a job? Where do we get a job? So it said over there, the Misrad Bitachon is looking for a job, a person to work in the the Department of the Military. Looking for a job. And it says over there, no experience necessary. Okay. So he has no experience, he's an ignoramus, but they tell him, go, what can you lose? They say no experience. So he comes there to the Misrad Bitachon, and he sees all the generals going back and forth. They give him a newspaper, and of course he can't read, so he turns the newspaper around. He looks at the newspaper upside down, and they saw that he's a good candidate. And he tells them, but why do you need me for? I can't read or write. Why do you? He said, don't worry about it, just wait. So they called, finally his time came. He went in, and they said him, sit down. So he says to them, do you know that I can't read or write? I'm illiterate. Why would you need me? He says, that's exactly why we need you. Because this is the Misrad Bitachon. We have very, very secretive documents. We can't afford to have anybody who understands what is in these documents, and we're looking for such a person who's an ignoramus. That's why I'm giving you the job. You hear that? That's at the end of the story. So he was there. Shh. Don't disturb other people. He was there for 40 years. It came a time he wanted to retire. He retired. A week later, they call him on the phone, please come back, we can't find that nigga Ramas like you anymore.
He didn't have no children, nephews, grandsons.
So, why am I telling you the story? It's a very nice story, right? But the reason I'm telling you the story is that if you don't have a rabbi in your life, you're like in a ship that doesn't have a captain. Did you ever see a ship without a captain? A ship without a captain will drown. That's it. If you don't have a Rav, a rabbi, that you ask every serious question that you have in life, where should I send my child to learn? Where should I send my daughter to learn? Should I take this job? Should I not take this job? Should I move to this area? Should I not move to this area? Should I rent this store? Should I take this business or not? Everything has to go through the Rav. If you don't, that's where our downfall is. Okay. That's number 2. Number 2 is, if anything I came here for is to knock into your heads that you have to have a Rav. And Rav is not only for Askara. Tov Shem Tov. No. A Rav is to be part of your life. Because it says in the Torah, with Dafka boy, you should connect yourself to Hashem. So the Torah is, so the Chachamim asks, how can a person connect himself to Hashem? So he says, Eilu Talmidei Chachamim, these are the Rabbanim. If you connect yourself to your rabbi, you connect yourself to Hashem. Which means that you will have a happy life. You'll have Parnasah. You'll have Shalom Bayit. Some people don't even know what Shalom Bayit is. They have no idea. What is Shalom Bayit? Shalom Bayit is the most important mitzvah in the Torah. The most important mitzvah. Rabbi Reich, the most important mitzvah? Isn't tefillin more important than Shalom Bayit? No! Shalom Bayit is more important. The first mitzvah of Pru Revu, you should have children. Why? You should have Shalom Bayit. You can bring up normal children if there's no Shalom Bayit. But how do you know how to have Shalom Bayit? The Torah tells us how. And how do we learn it? It's only from the Rav. You have a problem with your wife? Should I say yes? Should I say no? Should I put my foot down? Should I not put my foot down? Is this important? Is this not important? You have to go ask your rabbi. If you don't ask your rabbi, you're like a ship without a captain, and it sinks. That's number 2. The number 3 things I want to talk about is we're coming here because we're making a siyum of Masechtot. And the Chachamim tell us that when there's a simcha of a siyum Masechta, this is like a Yom Tov, like Sukkot, like Pesach. Yeah. Because there's a simcha in heaven. Just as if the Beis HaMikdash would be here, and the Karbanot would be here in Pesach and Shavuos and Sukkot. It's a Yom Tov. Why is it a Yom Tov? Because it says in the Torah, in Bichukotai Telechu, if you go in my chukim, in the mitzvahs, then you will have bracha. Now, what does Rashi say? Does anybody remember what Rashi says? Bichukotai Telechu means not to learn. Bichukotai Telechu means you should sweat. You should try to understand. You should knock your brains out to try to understand a piece of the Torah. Just like when a person has a diamond, right? He never gets tired of polishing that diamond. He never gets tired. Because he knows he's going to make another so much thousands of dollars by this. So the same thing with the Torah. The Gemara that we have over here, you have to have Emunah. That every word that's in the Torah, what Abaye said, what Arava said, what Ravina said, what Rav Ashi said, Hashem gave this to Moshe Rabbeinu. Every drop of the Gemara that we learn is Hashem gave to Moshe Rabbeinu. Because Hashem wanted to show Moshe Rabbeinu, look how my children are going to sweat and toil to learn the Torah. And the only way to sweat and learn the Torah, my friends, is by Gemara. Talmud. You don't have Talmud, you don't have the Chukatai Telechu. You don't have the Chukatai Telechu. Now Rashi says, Vim b'chukotai loy telechu. And if you will not go on my chukim, then we'll have all the klalat, right? So Rashi says on the spot, what does it mean? normal people think means I will not learn Torah. No, Rashi says. You will learn Torah. But Torah. You won't sweat and toil to understand the Torah. Learning the Torah is not enough. Because the Torah is chayen, it's our life. It's our oxygen. Because it's our oxygen, we have to understand every word. Every word that's in there, we have to understand. And that is why it's such a big simcha when we make a siyum on Masechta. We're showing Hashem that we went through every word of this Masechta, every word of the Torah. We learned how Abaye explained it, and how Ravi explained it, and how Rav Ashi explained it, what's the halakha. And we went and we delved into it, and we sweat. That's why it's important for everybody to have a shir in Gemara. It's important to learn halachot, no question about it. It's important to learn Chumash, but if you don't have that learning Talmud, the Gemara, you don't have the connection to Hashem that you're supposed to have. That's why when the Crusades came through Europe, when they used to burn the Jewish Svarim, they didn't burn the Chumash or the Tanakh. What did they burn? They burned the Talmud. Talmud. Wherever they went, the Talmud. Because the Talmud is what connects us to Hashem. This isn't just a mitzvah. This is our connection to Hashem. So everybody should try to have a shir and learning the Talmud. Try at least once a week. Then twice a week. But you have to have that shir in Talmud to connect yourself to Hashem. So that's why it's such a great simcha today that we finished Baruch Hashem. I understand too much. It's such a great simcha to Hashem. And you have to understand something else. That Hashem is crying now in these 3 weeks. It says in the Medrash and it says in the Talmud, Hashem is crying, Oy lebanim shecharachav shegolu mi beis aviyem. The Rebbeinu Shalom is crying that the Beis Hamikdash is burnt. You know why? Because Hashem wants to be together with us. He's like a father. He wants to be with us. And with the Beis Hamikdash, He was with us. And because of that, Hashem is pain. What's the only way to make Hashem happy? By sitting and learning Torah. What's our purpose now in the 3 weeks? To sit and learn Torah. Amen. That makes Hashem. There's a story of Pinchas Hastila, one of the tzaddikim in Poland. While the Germans were taking Jews and executing them, he was sitting and learning Torah day and night. So they asked him, how can you sit and learn Torah when they're executing Jews outside? He said, you know why? Because when they're executing Jews outside, who's crying? The Rebbeinu Shalom is crying. So I want to make him happy. The only way I can make him happy is by learning Torah. That's why he sat to learn day and night. And then was it they took him out also and they killed him. But this is the lesson of the story. I'd like to end here, but I have a message to give. These 3 messages that I gave you until now were very important, but I have more messages, a couple more messages. So I hope you'll bear with me. I have a very, very busy schedule. And I came here because I wanted to give this message over for these dear Yidden that will come over here to celebrate in the Siyum Masechta. In this parasha we talk about a woman makes a vow and the husband can come and say it's null and void. Where's women's lib? This is liberty for women. She makes a vow, a neder, and he can say, he can nullify it. So the Torah says she didn't make such a vow, a simple neder. She made a neder that because of her neder, she will not keep the responsibilities of what a wife has to give to her husband. She will not, because of the neder that she made, she will not give so therefore a Jewish woman has to realize that she has responsibilities. And if she makes a neder, which is going to disrupt her responsibilities for Shalom Bayit, he has a right to make it null and void. And this is not only for the woman. The husband, when he gets under the chuppah, has a ktubah that he's mechayiv himself also for his responsibilities. If we want to have good children, we have to make sure that we keep our responsibilities. In this parsha, the parsha of Ori Miklat, the person that killed somebody accidentally, but he wasn't careful. That's why a person who kills somebody, he's an honest, he didn't even know what he had nothing to do with it. He's patur. But if a person was negligent, right? He was on a ladder and he should have realized people are on the bottom of the ladder. You can fall down and kill somebody. He was negligent. You have to go to Ari Miklat. You have to go run away. You can't be together with everybody. You have to make a mishpat on you to see what the law is. So the Chazal tell us that there were 3 Ari Miklat on the western side of the Yarden, and 3 on the other side, on the one on the eastern side, and 3 on the western side. Question is, the eastern side had only 2 shvatim, right? Gad Reuven and Chatzi Menashe. The other one had 10 shvatim. Why did they have the same amount of Ari Miklat? So the Gemara says, you know why? Because they were ratzchim megillah. They were unfortunately, there was a misproportionate amount of people that killed other people, murderers, in Gillah. So the Chaim HaKadosh asks, why? Why was it there? It says, you know why? Because the fathers and the husbands of Gad and Reuven, they went away from their homes for 14 years to on the other side to fight in the war. So for 14 years, they weren't with their children. And when a father is not with his children, you know what they grow up to be? Ratzchim. A father that doesn't take care of his child every day. A mother that doesn't take care of his child every day to see to it that the child is happy, the child is learning properly. You can't put the responsibility on the Rebbe or the teachers. They're just your shliach. They have 20, 30 students in the house, in the class. You have to see to it that every day, you see to it that the child, you ask the child, how were you successful in yeshiva today? How did you learn today? Now I want to tell you something, a statistic. I'm dealing in chinuch already for almost 50 years. This is the statistic. We know, unfortunately, that many children go off the derech, right? Why? So they made a study in Eretz Yisrael. They made a study, a lot of mechanchim, and they came to the conclusion that a child starts going off the derech when he's 10 years old. Why? When this child is not happy in class, he doesn't understand the Talmud, he doesn't understand the Gemara, he gets embittered, he has a complex, and he starts feeling negative about himself. This goes year and year and year until he throws away Yiddishkeit. So this is the message, the third message, the fourth message that we have now for the Parsha, that we have to see to it, that we have to take care of our children. If you have a job, you can't be home with your children every day, or if a woman has a job, but she can't be together with the children, she can't greet her children with a smile every day when they come home, don't take it. That was a problem with Moshe Rabbeinu became angry with Gad and Reuven because they said, we will build, let us stay over here on this side of the Yarden, we will build Gidros L'Tzaneinu, right? We'll build houses for our cattle, and we will also build homes for our children. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, no! First you have to build for your children. Moshe Rabbeinu said just the opposite. And then you care about your parnasah. If your parnasah takes away from you the capability of taking care of your children, of seeing to it that they are successful in yeshiva, they're successful in school, then it's not considered a parnasah. Hashem help us that in the schus of being misayem, these mesechtes, we should, in this schus of giving a simcha to the Rabban Shalom, now, in the time where Hashem is crying, this is the only simcha that Hashem has. Hashem help us that in this schus Hashem will send us Mashiach Tzidkenu. Amen. Amen.